You just heard reading the article Impeachment on the Senate floor, and he joins me now for an exclusive interview. Congressman, it's great to have you. Let's start, I guess, with the history that's being made and why it's important. You've seen some Republicans try to say, look, he's out of office now, so there's a lot going on. Why do we need to do this? And what is your answer to that?
Chris, thank you for having me on. This was, as we have argued and as we intend to show, the worst presidential crime against the Republic in American history. And the violence was terrifying and overwhelming. 5 people died. A police officer hit over the head with a fire extinguisher. Police officers beat up, grabbed, pushed, shoved, jostled. We saw some really extraordinary things that day. But what America needs to understand, of course, is that Wednesday, January 6th was not some random arbitrary day chosen by the president and the organizers of this rally. This was the day that Congress met in joint session, the House and the Senate, to count the Electoral College votes that had been certified by 50 states and the District of Columbia. So this was the very last step in the ratification of the popular vote, which went more than 7 million votes for the Biden-Harris ticket, and the Electoral College vote, which was 306 to 232, the exact margin actually that Trump had won by back in 2016, which he declared to be a landslide. So this was the last opportunity, and as we find out more and more every day, the president was willing to use any means, unlawful, lawful, lawless, violent, whatever. He was willing to incite insurrection against the United States in order to nullify the actual Electoral College vote that was to be counted, and to try essentially to derail that election and to get himself reinstalled as president of the United States. And so that is a ghastly crime against the Republic. One thing that I want to point out, Chris, is that impeachment is not nearly so much about the past as it is about the future. The framers of the Constitution put impeachment, conviction, and disqualification from further federal office holding in the Constitution to protect the Republic, to preserve the Constitution. That's why it's in there. President Trump or any other Trump who's impeached and convicted does not spend a single day, a single hour, or a single minute in jail. It's not a criminal prosecution. It is a protective civil action to guard the Republic against someone who has committed high crimes and misdemeanors against the people and proven himself to be a danger to the country.
That remedy you mentioned, which is in the Constitution and also in Section 3 of the 14th Amendment, of course, crafted by members of Congress in the wake of the worst insurrection and rebellion the country ever faced, that is the Confederacy. It's very clear in that part of the 14th Amendment, which you cite in the article and in the impeachment language, that this disqualification idea is present throughout the architecture of the Constitution precisely for this reason. And it strikes me that it's an interesting counter to the Democratic argument that was made, small d Democratic argument in the last impeachment trial was, well, there's just going to be an election in 9 months. Do you really want to do this? That really isn't at issue here, is it?
Well, we were founded as a constitutional democracy. We overthrew monarchy and the idea that the government belongs to the king or one man and his friends. According to the framers' vision, those of us who aspire to and attain to public office are nothing but the servants of the people. And the minute that we violate our constitutional oaths and begin to usurp the government for our own purposes and commit high crimes and misdemeanors against the government, that is the moment that we forfeit our public office. Nobody has a constitutional right to be there. And the framers wanted to create a lot of ways to separate ourselves from people who were a danger to the continuation of Republican rule. And that's why we have a Republican guarantee clause. That's why we have a peaceful transfer of power. What happened on Wednesday, January 6th, was a direct attack on the peaceful transfer of power under the Constitution.
You refer to danger here, danger in the sense of to American constitutional democracy, but there's physical danger as well. As you noted, 5 people died. The more information we learn, particularly that moment with Mike Pence, just a minute or two pulled into a chamber before that mob comes up and may have set upon him. We have an individual now being charged who said he was going to assassinate AOC. What is the sort of sentiment among you and your colleagues in both parties, I would say, about what happened there and the sort of first-person effect of it and how that affects the proceedings we're going to see?
Well, I'll quote 2 of my Republican colleagues. Representative Cheney, Liz Cheney from Wyoming, said that the president summoned the mob, assembled the mob, later said he incited the mob. None of this would have happened without the chain of events that he set into motion, and everything is due to what he did set into motion. And she said it was the worst betrayal of office in American history. But I'll also quote Lindsey Graham, who I believe I saw said either the day of or the next day, they could have had a bomb. We all could have been killed. And that was my reaction. You know, Chris, I had my daughter with me, and I had my son-in-law, who's married to my other daughter, with me that day. They were, you know, several hundred feet away outside of the House chamber. We all could have been killed. That mob that broke through all the windows and ran over the cops and muscled their way in and beat people up, that mob did not go through metal detectors, did not go through security screening, and a lot of them were armed.
Final question for you. I know that you lost your son, Tommy, at age 25, just shortly before January 6th. What you and your family wrote about him, I found profoundly moving. I know a lot of people who've dealt with depression of loved ones in their lives found it profoundly moving. And I know this has been just a brutally difficult period for you. I just wanted to offer my condolences, all of our condolences, and ask how you and your family are doing.
Well, thank you, Chris. I have been carrying Tommy Raskin very close to my heart, and all of his friends from Blair High School in Montgomery County and Amherst College and Harvard Law School who've really rallied behind us, as well as hundreds or thousands of people from across the country who really saw the magnificent spirit of Tommy Raskin. And we've been collecting the extraordinary essays that he wrote, and I hope we'll be publishing them soon. A lot of them were already online, a lot of his poetry, a lot of his plays. But also, we've got a bunch of unpublished things, including, papers he wrote during school. And in addition to everything else, he was magnificently funny and lighthearted. And so anyway, we want to get these out to people. But thank you for your condolences, Chris. We feel a little bit better each day, and we feel a little bit better each day that the people rally to defend our republic against this monstrous attack on the Constitution and the people.
All right. From one father to another, I just can't imagine what it is to do what you're doing right now. And thank you for all that you've done, Congressman Jamie Raskin, the lead impeachment manager for the House. Thank you so much, sir.
And thank you for having me, Chris.
Tonight, even as thousands of National Guard members remain